NFL free agency has slowed down a little bit, it's a good time for us to look at some of the deals that were made, and I'll highlight some of my favorite moves in this video. So a huge shout out to channel members M. Boti and Sloshy for requesting this video. Alright, let's get right into it because we have 32 teams to look at. Starting with, we'll go in alphabetical order, the Arizona Cardinals. Notably, they signed Jonah Williams and Sean Murphy Bunting, so they are addressing their defensive needs. Of course, they lost Marquise Brown in this window, so they'll be looking for a wide receiver to replace him. They've got, I think, number 4 overall pick in the draft, so that's a good opportunity for them. Overall, I think they've got the right focus, and it's been a good window for them. Now, the Atlanta Falcons, and we have to focus on Kirk Cousins here. I think this is a fantastic signing. 4 years for $180 million. And look, he's not young. He's coming off of an Achilles tendon injury, but I still can't fault the Falcons for this signing. I think it's $90 million guaranteed, so just the 2 years. And the point here is that the Falcons really needed to address their quarterback situation. It's been a recurring issue for them, and Cousins is a proven quarterback. Not only that, but he has worked with Raheem Morris in Washington before. He's been looking good in workouts, and his game is very structured. He operates through his offensive team, so the Achilles isn't necessarily a big concern for me, at least not as big as some people make it out to be. And speaking of offense, Atlanta has one of the best offensive lines in the league, so I think it's a really good fit from that perspective. Point being, the Falcons really needed a quarterback, and Cousins was the best option for them. So like I said, the Achilles could be a bigger deal for other quarterbacks, but with his style of play, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think the Falcons made a great move here. On to the Baltimore Ravens, huge signing in Derrick Henry. I'm looking forward to seeing how he plays this season, because between Henry and Lamar, this team has legs. They did lose Patrick Quinn, Gus Edwards, and Geno Stone, though Morgan Moses as well. So they still have some gaps to fill in free agency and certainly in the draft as well. Now the Buffalo Bills. Look, the Bills, my local team, by the way, they had to make room for Josh Allen's salary. They did bring in Curtis Samuel, but overall, I think they've lost a bit of stock with the moves moves that they've made so far. Now the Carolina Panthers, some good signings in Deontay Johnson and Robert Hunt, but losing Brian Burns feels like a net loss for the Panthers. To be fair though, they will be focusing on Bryce Young and their offense. So offensively, I think they are making good moves. All right, the Chicago Bears. Now, I think they have the first pick in the draft. Fair to assume that they'll pick the USC quarterback Caleb Williams. So they notably got rid of Justin Fields, and they're sort of preemptively building an offense for Williams. They're bringing in Keenan Allen and DeAndre Swift. So I think it's an exciting year for Chicago. Don't know if they'll hit the ground running in this coming year, but there's a build happening. Moving on to Cincinnati. Their focus was on the secondary. Between Geno Stone and Von Bell at safety, I think they spent wisely in the window. I think it's a net positive for them right now. The Cleveland Browns. The Browns, they didn't have much that needed to be done in this free agency beyond re-signing the players that they already have. So the sort of big move has been the addition of Jerry Jeudy, and I'll be interested to see how he and Deshaun work together and if they can create something special. But things are looking alright for the Browns. Dallas Cowboys. Not much to talk about. Losing Tyron Smith is a bit of a hit, but they are holding their purse close to their chest. Does that sentence make sense? Because they have big new deals to sign with their current players, so we might see them grab some stragglers later in the free agency, but I don't think they're looking to spend all that much. The Denver Broncos. I'm sorry, Broncos fans, but this so far is a tough window for the team. They do have some salary cap issues, but Cushenberry is a big loss. Justin Simmons as well. It's obviously a rebuild, given the salary cap questions, but it feels like it's going to get worse before it gets better for the Broncos. Now the Detroit Lions. Listen, obviously coming off of an incredible season, and now they're basically just improving the team inch by inch. The secondary is what needed most attention, and they are working on it. They've been aggressive. DJ Reader is a huge win, so I think we're going to see more great things from this team this year. Okay, now for Green Bay, and there are two additions that I want to focus on. The first is Xavier McKinney. 4 years, $68 million. He was the best safety available this window, and I don't say that negatively. Like, he's a great safety. Last year, he had 116 tackles, 3 interceptions. And this upcoming draft class doesn't have much to offer in the position either. McKinney is young, and Green Bay is a young team. Basically, the Packers need to restart their secondary, and they got one of the best available players at a reasonable cost. So I think the McKinney signing is a step in the right direction. The other player for the Packers that I don't think should be discounted is Josh Jacobs. 4 years for $48 million, but I think only the first year is guaranteed at signing. So they're not married to him. But with the Packers moving on from Aaron Jones, they needed to fill that gap. Now, to be fair, Jacobs had a tough year last year. We can't deny that, but some of that might be attributed to the team that he played for. In the end, Green Bay needed a running back with Swift and Pollard already off the market at that point. I think Green Bay needed to strike and bring in Jacobs. And again, he's working with a young offensive core, and they might bring another running back in through the draft. But to have a little experience, I think he's only like 26, he's not that old. But to have a little experience there with Jacobs, I think might be a positive for the Green Bay offense. Let's move on to Houston, and specifically Danielle Hunter. 2 years, $49 million. They needed a replacement for Greenard, which we'll get onto him in a bit. But Hunter, 16.5 sacks last year, double digits. Let me try that one again. Double-digit sacks in 4 of the last 5 seasons that he played. And now he's paired up with Will Anderson Jr., the Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. Should make for a really dangerous pairing. So all this to say that Hunter is a strong replacement for Greenard, and a 2-year contract is perfect considering his age. I think he got a fair price, and now the Texans are in a good spot. Now the Colts, they did a lot of their work internally, re-signing their key players. They brought in Flacco to back up Anthony Richardson, and I've got a video on Joe Flacco. It's going to be linked in the description. But overall, just a very neutral free agency for them so far, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Now Jacksonville, lots of movement for the Jaguars. Big loss in Calvin Ridley, but they didn't leave a huge gap. They've signed on Gabe Davis and Devin Duvernay. So this is another team that I feel is pretty neutral overall coming out of the first few weeks of free agency. Kansas City. And let's talk about Curtis Jones. the most important retention for the Chiefs, and they locked him in 5 years, $158 million. Obviously, he got the better end of the deal here. But the Chiefs basically needed to do whatever it took to keep him. And it's not like it's a terrible deal financially for them either. 10.5 sacks in 16 games last year. One of the best defensive tackles in the league, and I think he's now the highest paid defensive tackle per year league-wide. I don't think he has the biggest contract, but per year I think he's getting paid the most. So yeah, this is a great signing both for Jones and for the Chiefs. Everyone wins here. They very well could repeat another Super Bowl win. The Chargers. They had to cut a lot of salary, which explains Keenan Allen leaving. Gus Edwards is an interesting addition, but I think we have to give Harbaugh some grace in his first season. I think it might be a rough one for the Chargers. The Rams, on the other hand, Aaron Donald retired, and that's a huge loss for them, and definitely something that they'll have to address. But on the other side, Jonah Jackson coming in, pairing up with Kevin Dotson, should be a positive for Matthew Stafford. Now the Las Vegas Raiders. Looks like they're all about quarterbacks right now. They signed Gardner Minshew. There are rumors that they're going to try to add another quarterback before the season starts. They still do have other gaps to fill though, but it feels early to make a judgment on the Raiders in a strange way. I feel like there's a lot more, or at least some more, to come from these guys. Miami. The Dolphins are having a tough time of it. They lost Christian Wilkins. They lost Robert Hunt, which is going to make things hard for Tua. So they had, great offense last year, but they can't slip. They can't afford to lose more quality on offense. Okay, with the Vikings, as promised, we have to talk about Greenard. 4 years, $76 million. When they started looking at him, when the Vikings did, it was fair to assume that Hunter was on his way out. And what ended up happening is that Greenard and Hunter just switched places on each other's teams. Last year, Greenard had 12.5 sacks, which puts him 4th in sack rate in the league for players with at least 200 pass rushes. So he's coming off of a career year. He's a bit younger, I think, than Hunter, who he's replacing. And importantly for the Vikings, this means that they can focus on other positions in the draft, because without Hunter, even though I think Greenard left before Hunter did, but without Hunter they would have had a huge gap to fill. So I think this is a great position, great fit rather for the Vikings, and also a pretty good value financially speaking. Otherwise, where where does this leave the Vikings? Well, like I said, now they can focus on other positions, and that for them is quarterback. They signed Sam Darnold, which is sort of a short-term solution, but the big idea for them is to try to trade up in the draft to get a strong quarterback on the team. Will they get there? It's hard to tell at this point. April is coming up. And I know quite a few teams are looking at quarterbacks in this draft, so that'll be interesting to see how that develops. Now, New England, for me, the Patriots, it's all about Brissett. 1 year, $8 million. And basically, the point is that the Patriots got a good deal for him. The backup role is becoming so important with the rate of injuries and illnesses that we're seeing these days. The Commanders should have traded him mid-season. If they were going to let him go anyway, they could have gotten something out of it. And while they might pick a new quarterback in the draft, the Patriots, Brissett is a great fill-in while a new kid gets up to speed. He's played in a bunch of different systems. He's a good leader. So in the short term, I don't know that the Patriots could have asked for any better. That being said, to be fair, the Patriots do have to fill out their offense with a few more players to be competitive this year. New Orleans, another team struggling with the salary cap. They've added Chase Young, but they've let go of a few players that, as of now, I think is going to be a problem. Free agency isn't over. There's still time. The New York Giants. Let's talk about Burns. 5 years, $141 million. The biggest gap for the Giants was at this position, and this is absolute thievery. Panthers fans should be upset. I think the trade was Burns and a 5th round pick for a 2nd round pick, a 5th round pick, like they swapped 5th round picks, and a 2025 5th round pick. And the issue here for the Panthers is that the Rams actually offered the Panthers 2 first-round picks for Burns at the trade deadline. Was it in 2022? And now, here we are. The Giants are focusing on their defense this year, and getting Burns actually allows them to pay a little more attention to the offense now, which is great for them. Honestly, he wasn't cheap, but the Giants got a huge win here. The Giants win the free agency window with a trade, which is nuts. Alright, we'll zip through a few more of the teams here. The Jets. Actually, I'll restart. It's a good time to restart my camera. So the Jets, they are adding offensive linemen for Rodgers and a new backup quarterback. They did already have a strong defense, but losing Huff is a bit of a hit for the team. Overall, though, I still think the free agency has been positive for the Jets. The Eagles getting Saquon Barkley is great, but it shouldn't necessarily have been their biggest priority and what they make a splash with. They lost Kelsey and Cox to retirement this year, so I think they still have work to do on both sides of the ball to really beef up the team. The Steelers are a huge question mark, to be honest. Bringing in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields to completely revamp the quarterback spots, it's a risk, and we'll see if it pays off. I really can't tell with this one. The 49ers lost Armstead and Kinlaw, added Floyd and Collins. Just another team that has really sort of gone neutral so far in free agency. And in all fairness to them, it's hard to improve on what is essentially the second best team in the league. The Seahawks. I mean, maybe most important was to keep Leonard Williams, which they did. But they also lost a few big names. And with not a lot of early picks in the draft, I think they have only one in the first, 80 or something like that. I think Seattle might have needed to do more to be competitive. But as I've been saying, there's still time. So don't get too discouraged. Seahawks fans, hopefully we'll see some good stuff coming out. For Tampa Bay, I want to talk about Lavonte David. 1 year, $9 million. He's such an important part of the Bucs defense. He's got 10 100 tackle seasons, and he's not slowing down. 134 tackles last year. So while they are spending a bit more than maybe they should on this guy, he's shown no drop in his consistency. And at the end of the day, I think this is a good deal on both sides that keeps a team together that made it to the divisional round last year. I mean, the Buccaneers have basically re-signed their top 5 free agents this year. This was the story of this free agency for them, and it's a success. Now for Tennessee, we have to mention Cushenberry. 4 years, $50 million. The Titans were desperate to build up their offensive line, and Cushenberry is a great place to start. He's only allowed 2 sacks and 16 pressures in the last 2 years. The Titans took too many sacks last year, and going from Aaron Brewer to Cushenberry is an upgrade. Cushenberry will be a very good center for the Titans. I love this signing. Let's not forget Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard are joining the team as well. So I'm excited to see this offense this year. And finally, we have the Washington Commanders. Another tough team to judge at this point, assuming they'll pick a quarterback at the draft. But they moved around quite a few players. They brought in some guys who know Dan Quinn in Armstrong and Wagner. They brought in Marcus Mariota as presumably a mentor for the rookie quarterback. So I think they did what they had to do ahead of the draft, and it's all just down to where things go from here. And guys, that is my very quick yet kind of lengthy overview of the NFL free agency so far. Let me know in the comments how your team did. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.